Greetings. Welcome, everybody. We are so glad to have you join us for this wonderful session with Compassion Institute and Dr. Erika Rosenberg. Compassion Institute is dedicated to advancing the principle of compassion, awareness of compassion as a guiding principle and an active force to foster a more caring world. We develop and deliver programs for individuals, institutions, and communities to promote personal and societal well-being that are rooted in the evidence-based understanding of compassion. This session is going to be guided today by our wonderful program director of public programs here at Compassion Institute, Tori Higa-Saris. She's going to be taking it over from here and introducing Erika. Tori, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. Happy to be here. And thank you to everyone who is joining us live and everyone who's watching after the fact. We're happy to have you today. And today, Erika Rosenberg is going to lead us on the topic of maintaining compassion during difficult or tumultuous times. So we'll be considering, how do you maintain compassion for yourself during tumultuous times? How do you offer compassion to people with opposing views? How can you manage to offer compassion for communities in pain when you yourself may be suffering? And today we will explore how we can sustain compassion during difficult times, and we'll participate in gentle practices led by Erika for your benefit. For those of you who are new to Dr. Erika Rosenberg, Erika is a scientist, author, and educator who seeks to help people understand themselves and one another better, connect with one another, find peace and joy in life, and suffer less. Dr. Rosenberg's academic work focuses on the study of emotion, emotion expression, and contemplative science. Erika is also a co-creator of the Compassion Cultivation Training, CCT, at Stanford University with lead author Thupten Jinpa, and she is a founding faculty here at Compassion Institute, as well as a teacher of many beautiful classes. Erika, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tori, and thanks to all of you who showed up today, for yourselves, for everybody you interact with in the world. I am very happy to be able to offer this session through the Compassion Institute. I think that all of us today on planet Earth are feeling the effects of a great deal of change happening. I'm going to go right away into acknowledging the problem, the dilemma that brings us here, whether it's looking at climate change. I first reached out to Tori and Stephen about having a session in the wake of the disastrous fires in Los Angeles, and being a Californian, experiencing that from afar, but also that was my birthplace. So having some connection to there, the horrific evidence of climate change all over the world, the political shakeup that's happening in the United States and around the world, wherever you happen to be in your view on things or how you feel about the changes, there's no denying that there's a great deal of change. So some people are feeling overwhelmed. Some people are feeling frightened. Some people are feeling angry, all kinds of feelings. And all kinds of feelings are welcome here. I think there's so many general messages that I could share, or in terms of how I present what we're going to be going through today. But one of them is to feel what is, feel what you're feeling. It's okay to be feeling a lot. And one of the things that I hope that you will get from what we do here today is just some suggestions, some ideas, some practices that might help you accommodate what you're going through. My intention really is to offer some words and simple practices that might be of help to you in finding balance, finding compassion for yourself, and working for, maintaining or growing your ability to reach out to others. Because one of the things that we do know right now is that we need to reach out to others. I'm going to be making this point again near the end of the talk, but I really want to make a plug for the importance of community here. To reach out to your community, to lean into community for support, and also leaning into community for any actions or gestures or behaviors or movements you might want to get into to deal with what's going on in the world. So that's just a general plug for community. We need to come together. I think that's one thing that everybody will acknowledge, that there's value in connecting with others. The more we can come together rather than push ourselves apart, the better we will all be. So, to begin, I want to say a few words and then I want to lead us into a general practice. But I want to start by saying something about compassion because, the compassion is in the title of this webinar. This is the Compassion Institute. We might make an assumption that everybody knows what we're talking about when we say compassion. But just to make sure we're all on the same page, I'm really working from a definition of compassion coming from or embodying this sense of paying attention, noticing what's going on with yourself and with others, being moved by the condition of the world and of other people and of yourself, seeing especially where there's suffering and letting that touch you. And by touching you, I mean move you to ignite potentially an empathic connection because you know what it feels like to suffer. And if you see someone else suffering, you can at least connect to how it feels to suffer and allow that to form the basis and partly the motivation to do something about the suffering to help reduce it. So that's a complex definition, but just to be succinct, being moved by what you see in the world, especially suffering, and be motivated to do something about it. Remembering especially that it starts with you. Knowing how to attend to your own suffering, knowing how to use care when you're feeling pain. And that is sort of a precondition for being able to reach out to others. So when we think about maintaining compassion and finding your ways to connect more in the face of all the challenge that might be overwhelming, one of the places that we can begin, and this is an expression of self-care, is with stability. How do we find stability? A lot of people feel, there's too much going on. It's overwhelming in their mind. So how do you find the ground? How do you find stability? And one of the challenges here, of course, is that change is always happening. One of the things we can count on is that there will always be change. So we're in this, the juxtaposition of wanting to find some ground beneath our feet, wanting to find some stability, and the very fact that nothing is stable. Nothing stays the same, even though we seem to be constantly, a lot of us move through life. I hope things just settle down and working through things that eventually it's going to settle and be one way, but it's never one way. Granted, there are times when there's more change and other times where there's less change, or we could say mathematically the slope changes at the rate of change, right? Right now, it's a time of a lot of change. So what do you do about stability when change is always happening? The source of stability can come from within. So what I'd like to lead us through are some simple practices. And this is a good way to launch everything else that we're going to talk about here today. Some practices for stabilizing, settling the body, settling the mind, so that you can think more clearly, so that you can see, so that you can feel a little less agitated, which is a necessary first step before anything else. It's also has this ability to settle the nervous system. If you're agitated and anxious, any of the practices that we work with for settling the body and becoming more spacious and opening have this effect physiologically of bringing down sympathetic activation, of settling heart rate. Working with the breath is one way that's incredibly beneficial. So let's take a moment now and go through a brief practice of feeling grounded, finding stability. And this is the kind of thing that you can do daily. You can do it for a short period of time. You can do it for a long period of time. You can come back to it. And doing practices like this are beneficial both for settling yourself if you're agitated, and also for building a habit of stabilizing regularly so that your body kind of can reset its baseline to being a little bit more stable and settled overall. All right, so starting with finding a posture that feels stable. And it might take you a moment to do this. I'm sitting in a chair and I have my feet flat on the ground. If you can do that, great. If your feet don't reach the ground, it may be if you have something to put them on, or just not crossing the legs is good. If you're on a cushion, not crossing your legs in the chair because you want to be kind of even. Maybe you're sitting on a cushion with your legs crossed, that's fine. But wherever you're seated, try to find a posture that you can settle into for a few moments and feel where you're connected to the earth. So the nice thing about having your feet flat on the ground is you can see where you make contact with the earth. You can feel where the soles of your feet are making contact with the earth. If you're seated in a chair, you can also notice where the backs of your thighs are hitting the chair, or if you're on a cushion, maybe it's your knees that are touching the ground. However you might be situated, connect to the earth. And feeling how you're holding your body, are your shoulders scrunched up? Trying not to be too stiff or too slouched. So if you're sitting in a chair, let your bottom kind of push against the rear of the chair, and then just let your spine settle rather than slouching back into it. So we're aiming for being alert yet relaxed, feeling where you're in contact with the earth, and inviting in a slow, deep cleansing breath. So allowing your chest and belly to open, taking your time on the in-breath, allowing it to fill like you might be filling a vase with water, bringing the breath in, filling up your chest and belly, and opening. This will quite literally create more space inside you and expand the body, unpack muscular tension, and noticing that spaciousness, and then very gently, very slowly, letting it go. So you can think of the out-breath as simply a relaxation of the in-breath, slowly letting it go. Letting your body settle into your seat, letting the earth support you. You don't need to use any extra muscles to hold yourself up. And as you invite in the next deep in-breath, imagine that you're pulling that in all the way down to your feet, to where you connect with the earth. Feeling that increased spaciousness inside, letting it open you, make more room, especially in the face of so much to handle, right? Making more room inside. And then very gently, very gradually letting that go, taking time on the out breath, just relaxing those muscles of the in breath. And as you do, feeling your weight settle down into your seat, maybe even through the soles of your feet. And if you're someone who has trouble working with breath, just as you're sitting, bringing your awareness just to the places where you're connected to the earth, and maybe your hands resting on your thighs. Tune into sensation as a way of grounding you. So let's do one more deep in-breath if that's working for you. And as you do, imagine you're bringing that breath in from across a vast distance. Like, give it imagery. I'm pulling mine in from across the mountains over to the ocean, bringing in the fog and the sky, opening, slowly drawing in that infinite spaciousness. Feeling so much bigger. And then slowly, when I'm ready, just letting that go. And imagine that the out breath, noticing as the out breath leaves your body, it's like a warm breath. You can envision that as a gentle, warm breeze being cast perhaps over a hillside, touching grasses, moving off onto the horizon. And when you're ready, you can release that imagery of slow, deep breathing. And just allow the body to breathe on its own. Let go of any effortful control of the breathing body. Just let the body breathe itself as it knows how to do. And then to settle the mind, just allow the mind to find something to relax on. We often use the breath. It can be where you most naturally feel your natural rhythm of breathing in the body. And maybe it's the belly moving up and down. Maybe it's the breath coming in through your nose, out through your mouth, or however you're naturally breathing. Just wherever you feel it. Or if the breath isn't easy for you to notice or comfortable for you to notice, notice where your body makes contact with the seat that you're on, or the feeling of your hands on your thighs or knees. Pick a sensation like that and allow that to be a touchstone for you. Touchstone meaning gently rest your awareness there. And if the mind becomes preoccupied or distracted, or you hear noises, or you get impatient, that's okay. Minds do those things. As soon as you notice that's happening, gently bringing your awareness back to the breath where you feel it naturally in your body, or to that sensation that you've decided to call home. So we'll sit silently for a couple minutes, just generally staying with the breath or that sensation with a lightness and openness, not a tight grip. And returning there if the mind wanders, just coming back with a sense of humor about the nature of mind and coming back to the breath. Remembering if the mind wanders off, just gently bringing your awareness back to the feeling of the breathing body, or to the sensation of being seated here right now. I'm going to gently ring a bell now to close this practice. So that's a very simple and also very profound practice for stabilizing the mind and body. Many of you who, even most people who've only barely been exposed to meditations, have maybe seen or experienced some version of that. There's also, you know, I'm sure experienced meditators among this group. One of the things I like to say about that practice is that it's simple, but it's profound. So you can do it for a few minutes and it's stabilizing. You could do it for a few minutes every day and it's even more stabilizing, or even most days a week. You could also do that for an hour, or more. It's, yeah, it can be incredibly profound simply in that by stabilizing the mind and settling and doing this process of, when the awareness moves away, bringing it back, which might seem like, so I'm taking, what's the good of this, bringing the mind back over and over again. The value of that practice is that it rehearses or teaches you to put your awareness where you want it to be. It also is very stabilizing. So we might feel, there's a whirlwind of information or a whirlwind of things going on. If we've practiced stabilizing mind, not only can we use that in a moment when we feel overwhelmed, but we can also cultivate that as a habit to be able to be more skillful at stabilizing and being more stable overall. One of the nice things about being able to place your awareness where you want it to be, because if you're over and over coming back, you're learning how to put your awareness where you want it to be. That is something that supports mindfulness, as does stabilizing the body and mind. So there's a metaphor that's used a lot in meditation teaching that is, the agitated mind is one that's stirred up like a glass of water with a lot of debris in it, or stuff in it. It's cloudy, you can't see because things are whirring around all the time. If we settle the body and settle the mind, eventually that movement will settle. Like if you're stirring a glass of water with stuff in it, even if you're mixing up a drink with some, vitamin supplement or something that you're adding, if you don't mix it all up, if you let it go, the contents will eventually settle to the bottom. And what's interesting is then you have this clear water that you can see through. Your mind, when unstirred, remains clear, right? So you can see what's going on better. You're less overwhelmed. You also can see, and this is what I like about the metaphor of stirring the glass, when the movement is stopped, it doesn't magically get rid, especially if there's dirt in water, it doesn't get rid of the dirt. The dirt will settle to the bottom, or the debris will settle to the bottom, and then you can see what's going on. You can see the stuff that's in your mind. Maybe there are fears. Maybe there are ideas for things you want to do. Maybe there are old psychological issues, all that stuff. When you get clearer vision, you can get perspective. It's called mindfulness of mind. You can see what's going on, and that makes it easier to move through life and to do more what you want rather than respond reflexively to what's going on. So that was a lot, but I just kind of talked about the importance of stability for settling, an agitated nervous system, settling the mind, being a little less agitated, but also the role of that in helping you cultivate mindfulness, because you can't see when everything's all murky. You can see better when you're settled. Now, I've been talking about stability, and we can do practices for stabilizing the mind. Another way of, I was thinking about what are other ways to build stability, especially when everything seems so unpredictable. One is to work in some routine into your life. You might have routines that are already there, and maybe sometimes you resent them, but you can lean into them and find support in them. Maybe it's a work schedule that you have. Maybe it's certain obligations. There might be other routines that you can create for yourself that are actually nourishing, like, morning, A certain time of day, I will do some exercise. I will go on a walk. Do something for yourself that becomes routine. Having things scheduled in that are predictable can be great sources of stability. um, One thing, even your morning coffee or your morning tea, or you take a moment if the weather's nice and sitting outside with a cup of coffee. That kind of practice involves really two things. One, routine, which can help be reassuring in the face of a lot of change. And it's also, like a lot of these things I'll be talking about, an expression of self-kindness, doing something for yourself, which really leads into the next topic, which is also a background topic, an overarching topic here, and that is self-care and self-compassion. Compassion begins with you. If we do not know how to care for ourselves, it is very difficult to know how to care for others. So we need to practice that. We need to remember that, especially if you're somebody who is a helper. There may be many of you who are attending today or who are watching this later who are in a helping profession, who help support others. I'm one of those people. I help support others. And we all know that sometimes when we're helping a lot, we can get wiped out, we can neglect ourselves. And then the system kind of breaks down because you can't be a good helper, you can't support others when you are breaking. So we need to take care of ourselves first. We need, just all the metaphors, right? One of my favorites for self-care or self-compassion is, what we all learn when we go on an airplane and they go through the emergency procedures, that if there's a loss of cabin pressure, the mask will drop down. And if you're, to put the mask on, but if you're traveling with a small child, make sure you put your mask on before you put their mask on. Because if you're passed out, you're not going to be of any help to them. So you need to give yourself the oxygen. You need to give yourself the self-care. Kindness towards self and attention to what's hurting. Now, a couple different things about self-care that I want to say. Self-compassion is important for soothing on the spot, which relates to what we just talked about. So if you're overwhelmed, can you relax yourself? You could do that kind of meditation that we just said. You can simply just ground, like feel yourself connected to the earth. Whatever you need to do to find some sense of stability or to ground. So there's this soothing element. You can, warm your hands like this, which is a great grounding thing to just feel sensation. And you can, Kristen Neff talks about doing this a lot, to putting your hands on your heart and connecting there. I like bringing this friction thing in because you get some warmth, and you can put the warmth on your heart and you can breathe into that and feel the warmth there. And also just feeling the connection of the hands to the heart area can be quite reassuring. So this is a self-soothing exercise. So you can self-soothe, you can stabilize to self-soothe. You could also express self-compassion by inviting in joy. Don't forget about joy. Don't forget about happiness. This is the self-kindness. This is the doing a good thing for yourself. It also really helps you be lighter about things because even, some people say, oh, it's just there's so much going on. It's so serious. Don't forget to play. Don't forget to have fun. Don't forget to at least take a break, because if you don't take a break from it, you're going to collapse. It's that overwhelming distress that can happen if you are not attending to your own sense of overwhelm. So taking some time and moving your awareness away from a problem, maybe it's a disaster that happened. When the LA fires happened, my son was in LA and I was preoccupied and looking at the news all the time. Can I just move from that? It doesn't actually do any good for me to be looking at the news, and I need to be informed, and then I can go do something else. And it was hard to do much else, but it was able to, but I was at least trying to distract a little bit. There is value in distraction because it helps you not get overwhelmed. So breathe, hold it, do something else, go look at the trees, stare out the window for a second, build in something enjoyable, find play on a regular basis. And I know that sometimes we can be so low that the idea of play seems totally elusive. And maybe then the best you can do is grounding, and that can be an enormous amount of help. There is also just plain value in distraction, especially if you know you're doing it and you're making a choice. If you're very preoccupied, you will come back to the thing that has been bothering you. So taking a break, this tool that I just went through in the meditation of watching your breath and coming back if it wanders. The breath goes away, your attention moves away from the breath and you come back. It moves away and you come back. That is an exercise in putting your awareness where you want it to be. So if you're in the world, the more you do that, the better you are at that skill when you're off the cushion. So if you're out in the world, you're really distressed, you can oh, I'm out here. I want to not be I can move my attention to something else. We're lucky here in California, spring is already starting. It's going to start eventually wherever you are. And you can notice the first flowers coming up. Or just simply notice the stark light coming in the window, and the shadows that it casts. Right behind me, you can see, and to show you, there's this window in my room where the bright light comes in, and it's always kind of magical every day when that happens, at least when the sun's out. Notice beauty around you. One of my favorite little take-home teachings I give in my compassion classes is to tell my students to notice beauty 3 times a day. You could set your alarm. That helps build the habit of taking in something that's different and to remembering the beauty and the positive things. So that's just a little background, making a case for how you can bring joy to yourself and the importance of taking care of you and the importance of self-compassion. I'd like to guide us through a very brief self-compassion meditation, which is really important. And oh, wait, before I do that, I'm just going to name this and then I'll come back to it. And if I don't come back to it enough, I hope someone, maybe Tori, you can prompt me afterwards or someone can ask about this. There's a lot of reasons why self-compassion is important. I said that if you got to put your oxygen on before you help the small child traveling with you. If the caregiver, the helper falls apart, you can't help anymore. You got to take care of this thing, right? So that's one. You got to take care of that. But the other amazing thing about self-compassion is it is the key to letting go. What does letting go mean? Something's real intense. We can't manage everything, or we're preoccupied. You're preoccupied. My son's in LA with the fires. What am I going to do? How do you let go for a moment to find peace? How do you stop worrying about something or stop being preoccupied about something that's overwhelming so that you can go through your day? Letting go is a very important skill that seems elusive to all of us. But if we have been practicing with a number of these tools or meditations for being aware of our own pain and wanting it to go away and internalizing this idea of, may I be free from suffering, may I be free from pain, may I be free from adversity, like we might wish for others who we care about in some of these meditations that we do, or just from our heart. If we've internalized that a lot, it becomes a habitual way of thinking. I don't want to suffer. I want to remember that I want to be okay. It helps you begin to release that kind of being hooked on to negative emotions. So having these difficult emotions is normal and it's important. Emotions are important. They tell us what matters to us. They tell us whether we feel like there's something we need to change. It reflects, it's a reverberation of something we've lost or of something that's aligned with our goals. We need our emotions and we need to feel them rather than put a lid on them. But most of the distress that comes from emotions is not having them. I'm doing a little curve because they come, they are intense, and then they drop off. And we actually know this from scientific study of emotion. What makes an emotion get sustained over a very long period of time is the reigniting of it. Oh no, this isn't, oh no, I'm feeling afraid, or oh no, this problem isn't solved, that it perpetuates over and over again in a positive feedback cycle. Self-compassion and awareness and the habit of self-care and seeing what our mind does can help us let go of that. Can help us, I'm just feeding that emotion. Can I come back to the breath? I can still know what matters to me. Come back to the breath, stabilize, whatever, soothe, etc. Okay, so that was my little spiel on letting go and the importance of self-compassion to letting go, and also to acknowledge that it's a process of learning how to do that. So with that backdrop, I'd like to go through a brief self-compassion meditation. Again, okay, so for me, moving from the talking and you maybe listening, if you're writing notes, I don't know, letting that, putting that aside for a minute, feeling yourself seated here now. Always starting with some stability and relaxation, which means noticing how you're holding your body. And that's so important because that sort of forms the foundation for the mind. If the body's fidgety or tense, the mind will follow. And vice versa, they affect one another. So, feeling how you're seated, connecting to the earth, maybe inviting in a big, deep, cleansing breath all the way down to your feet. Opening. Again, feeling the space created by that deep in-breath. And then slowly letting it go, releasing, letting your weight settle into the seat. And at the same time, letting go of any extra tension in the body. Inviting you to do a couple more of those slow, deep cleansing breaths on your own, taking time on the in-breath to open, expand, fill with air. And then gently letting that go, slowly relaxing the in-breath, letting the weight settle into the seat, letting the earth support you. It does a really good job of doing that. And letting go of that deep breathing and just settling into the body, mind, that inner space. Maybe allowing the gentle rhythm of the breathing body to be a touchstone to your attention, to come back to, just as we did before. And maybe in this internal space right now, sitting in the body with the breath, connecting to maybe what brought you here today. Maybe it was out of a need for finding balance, for self-care. Maybe the word compassion and your concern for what's going on in the world, for yourself, for your others, for your dear ones. All of that coming from the heart. And recognize that genuine goodness in your own heart. We are not perfect. None of us is perfect. But there's some goodness in all of us. That intention that brought you here, and how you show kindness to your dear ones and to strangers at times. Hopefully, more of that as the compassion grows. Kindness you might show to a baby or an elder. The goodness in your heart. The goodness for yourself that you did by making a decision to do this today, to take this time out. And imagining the heart, use your imagination here for a moment and imagining the heart as glowing, warm, center to you. It is a warm place, emanating heat, pumping blood throughout the body, the source of life. With every in-breath, you're fueling it. It's such a gift. And letting the warmth of your heart radiate throughout your body. Maybe finding places where you have pain, physical pain. Maybe there's emotional pain that you carry in certain spots or just is generally burdening you. Maybe there's that tension in your shoulders from being wound up. Notice where you're hurting and letting that brilliant healing energy of your heart reach out to that spot where you feel discomfort and soothe it. Letting your own good intention be supportive and soothing for your own pain. And just as you would reach out with a warm embrace to someone who's very dear to you, whether it's a relative, a partner, a child, your dog, your cat, the feelings that come up when you think of reaching out to someone who you find very dear, send some of that same energy back to you. Without analysis, just imagine you can do that. Whether it's warm, healing vibes, you can give it a visual form, the rays of the sun, the colors of the rainbow. Whatever it might be, sending it out all over your body to wherever you need it. May I be safe. Allowing yourself to hear these lines I'm going to share and maybe even recite them to yourself silently or aloud if you need to hear it. May I be safe. May I be okay. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering. May I find peace and joy. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering. May I find peace and joy. Or maybe some version of those phrases that feels more natural to you. Offering yourself some kind phrases to reinforce your wish to be okay, to be fine, to be at ease, to find peace. May I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be free from suffering, may I find peace and joy. And then maybe letting go of those phrases and just sitting in whatever you're feeling. Being present in the body, in the space of body-mind. Noticing the feeling of being seated here now. Noticing the rhythm of the breathing body. And tuning in maybe to this general wish for peace and well-being. And again, coming in with the bell. So that's a simple meditation that you can do. Um, Again, to reinforce this sense of caring for yourself. And the phrases, if you're, many of you are probably familiar with working with phrases in meditation, silent phrases. And if you're not, and for years I meditated without them. And the first time I came into contact with this idea of phrases for yourself or phrases for others, we do this a lot in loving kindness and compassion practice. At first, to me, it felt a little artificial. And then with work, it kind of sunk in. And the value of it, even if you think of it from the psychology of learning, is to, when you repeat something, it becomes a more common way of thinking. Like when we memorize something, repetition is one of the most rudimentary forms of remembering or learning something. You are reminding yourself that you want to be happy. You are reminding yourself that you want to be free. Just like you would be reminding, and I'll get to that shortly, that you want others to be happy and free of suffering. That the repetition of that, especially if you do it on a regular basis, maybe a few times a week you do a meditation or even daily, that you're starting to train the brain to think this way. And that becomes very helpful with that letting go that I mentioned earlier. Because if you notice from your mindfulness that you're getting sucked into thinking about something all the time or obsessing on the news or social media or whatever, you can go, wait, this is like just making me more anxious, and don't I want to be free from suffering? And you can actually move it. It's amazing, but you can do that. You can go, you can let go. And letting go doesn't mean not caring. It means like just having it be over there. It's still over there, but you also have, instead of this constricted awareness, you have this broader mind. And a broader mind is actually better at problem solving. So if you want to get into doing something about the thing that's kind of preoccupying you, that's very helpful. And this leads into one of the next topics I want to mention, something I've been working with a lot lately, and that is acceptance. The power of acceptance. Acceptance is greatly misunderstood. A lot of us think about accepting something or acceptance as giving in or caving, in the face of adversity or a problem. It's not that at all. Accepting is the ultimate expression of present mind and a kind of compassion orientation to what is. Not being in the future and not being in the past, being here now, accepting that even if something horrible and catastrophic has happened, it's happened. And acceptance is seeing that it's there. And, you might have a lot of coping that you have to do, a lot of management, a lot of emotion management, a lot of emotion regulation. Still, there is value in acceptance of seeing at some point what is, because that allows us to form a path to move through life and move through what comes next. So when we think about some of the major changes that are going on geopolitically right now that are difficult for a lot of people, and they don't want to accept the changes that are happening. Accepting what is going on right now today helps us figure out what we want to do, for our next step and how to move through the challenges that we face each and every moment. So I think it's really important to kind of, I think self-compassion plays a big role in acceptance, as does compassion for others. In that letting go element plays a big role in acceptance. It's mindfulness does as well. It's just seeing what is and being here, because there's nothing in this moment. Whatever is happening is happening. Can't change that. We can modify our behavior that might increase the likelihood of certain different things maybe happening in the next moment, or maybe some of the same things happening in the next moment. We don't know what will happen next, but we can modify and adjust. And, that's what learning is about. That's what planning is about. This is not to discount that. It's just to say that there's a huge relief in acceptance. It's just seeing it can calibrate you to engage further. Okay, there's one last really important point that I have apparently 5 minutes for, because we have to stop a few minutes before the hour. And that is to get into the importance of empathy and embracing common humanity. So I'm just going to say a few things about this and then guide us into a very brief meditation on that to kind of take us out. But I mentioned at the beginning the role of community. Communities certain incredibly important for social support, for garnering resources. We're a cooperative species. We evolved in groups, not in isolation. We need one another. Community is also important for healing divisions. The more we can become part of one greater group, of the group of humans on planet Earth, or the group of all creatures on planet Earth, and also connect to the value of the Earth, the more that we can be one group rather than little isolated factions, the better we will be, the more harmony we will have, the less suffering we will have. Part of what's key to that is recognizing what we share with others. And that can be difficult when we feel really opposing views on things. But distilling it down to a very, very fundamental level that on some level, we're all just trying to get through life. We don't want to be in a lot of pain. We want to have a good day or a decent day, and the specifics can all be different. The circumstances of our life, the resources can vary greatly, but on some fundamental level, we're just trying to get through. If we can connect to that in our hearts and as a fundamental understanding of others, it goes miles and miles or kilometers or eons or time and space. It can be incredibly healing and expansive. And it's really the key ingredient to being able to reach out to people who you didn't naturally reach out to care about people and groups that maybe felt like they're in total opposition to you, when you recognize we're all just beings here on planet Earth. The way major disasters tend to unite us, because we might have all these differences, but suddenly there's a huge disaster and everybody starts coming together as a community. That's one expression of how extreme circumstances can help us realize how we're more similar than we're different. And also helps build empathic understanding, because even though I don't know the specifics of your story, you see somebody, maybe someone who cut you off on the freeway, who is really, you get all angry that they cut you off on the freeway and what's that? But you can remember, oh, I don't know what was going on with their day. I had a bad day yesterday. Maybe they have a bad day today. And that's playing a role in what they're doing. Maybe they're not just the jerk who's being mean to you. So empathy, common humanity is essential there. So we don't have the amount of time that I wish we had to work on this, but I'm going to, rather than go through a seated meditation, I'm going to offer you some advice on how to work through this, work with it, is to do a little, kind of step through some of that settling of the mind. I'm going to pseudo teach a practice here, settling the mind, stabilizing the breath, and bringing to mind people, loved ones, people you don't know, and remembering that just like you, they're trying to get through life. Just like you, they have pleasure and pain and illness and joy and boredom and all the things, just like you. Just like you, they have a story, a rich history, people they know and who they live with or have lived with, just like you. Just like you, they want to make it to the end of the day and wake up for another, just like you. If you can touch into that kind of practice, those reminders, even if it becomes like a little personal mantra, just like me, or a meditation that you guide yourself through, just like the one I spoke briefly just now, that can become a meditation. If you remember the just like me, not to mean that we're all the same, we're not, the differences are huge. Somebody once said, this phrase, we're all in the same boat, that a more appropriate way of looking at it is we're all in the same storm. Some of us are in a rowboat, some of us are in a luxury boat, some of us are in a yacht, and some of us are treading water. So circumstances differ, but we're all in the same storm. And remembering the shared predicament, and remembering that in that climate, we're all just trying to get through. So one last thing I'd like to say, as I know we're short on time, is I really want to say, I mentioned the importance of community. I know also a very real thing right now can be a sense of hopelessness, that you might not garner up the strength for the just like me, or garner up the strength for even noticing beauty. But one of the things that's really helpful with hopelessness is action. And whether you want to take action in the sense of being politically active or action in a very different sense. And there's an old adage in activism called think globally, act locally. One way to act locally is to spread a little kindness. Be nice. Experiment with being nice. Now, you can be kind even with people you disagree with. So rather coming from a reflexive place, fueled by the fire of rage, of finding some balance and articulating a viewpoint from a kind place, or just being nice to a stranger. Spreading kindness is an intense form of activism, and it can make us, live in a nicer, kinder world, which will build community, erode barriers, and help us all. So I'd like to leave you with that and dedicate this time together to the growth of stability, acceptance, kindness, common humanity. May we all be free. May we all be free from suffering. May we all find ease and peace. Thank you.
Erica, thank you so much. I had the joy of getting to watch this today, and I just took so many copious notes on all of the beautiful things you were saying, and I know this will be a talk I return to often during my own difficult times. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I know we are nearing the end of our hour together, and we did not have time to get to questions from the chat, but I want to thank everyone who did put questions in the chat and offered gratitude there. Erica, there were many notes of gratitude in the chat to you for the offering today.
Thank you.
I will just share as we close, this was, never enough time together. 1 hour is never enough time to talk about compassion. And if you want to dive deeper in your compassion journey, we have a number of classes coming up. We have a 2-week self-paced course called Building Compassion from the Inside Out. We also have an 8-week CCT compassion cultivation training course. And our dear Erica is also teaching a Tonglen course, which is a 2-week intensive focusing on the active compassion practice of Tonglen, which I have shared my own experience of and has been incredibly transformative for me personally. So you can find all of those opportunities on the Compassion Institute website. And again, we want to thank you all for being here today, for taking the time, and for following Erica's call to action of spreading compassion wherever you are and spreading kindness in your local community. Erica, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I
Thank you.
appreciate you.
And yeah, and I feel bad we didn't have extra time for discussion. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or any of those places if you have questions and would like to follow up.
Thank you so much, Erica.
Okay,
Be
thank
well,
you.
everyone. Thank you, Erica.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day. Be nice. Be nice. That's my bottom line message. Be nice.
I
Spread
love
kind.
it. A good takeaway for us all.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you
Okay,
everyone for
thank
attending.
you. Bye.